Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be looking through the latest batch of tribunal decisions. I'm just going to give my mostly unfiltered thoughts on the decisions that came through last night and today, and also going to look back at a couple of other examples throughout the year. I was planning to make a video like this right after the Peter Wright incident and when he got slapped with a 4-week ban. In the end, I just didn't have enough time. So we're probably going to look back at that because that is relevant to comparing to one of the incidents we saw go to the tribunal last night. So first of all, I'm just going to go through the two ones that took place involving GWS. Toby Green and Jesse Hogan went to the tribunal appealing their one-match bans. Now, Jesse Hogan got off in the end. His one-match ban was downgraded to a fine. Toby Green's ban was upheld, however. Now, a lot of people are not very happy with this, and I can understand why. Jesse Hogan, it looked like he punched someone in the face. It may have been like an open hand or maybe sort of like a closed fist, but with the palm of the hand. It's kind of, the vision's a little bit blurry, but at the end of the day, he chose to strike someone and hit them in the face. So the AFL actually put out a new rule at the start of the year saying that any strike that results in, a strike to the head, even if they were potentially going for like the upper chest and they got them in the chin, that would still be classed as an intentional hit in the tribunal match review grading system, and any intentional hit would be result in a suspension. But we've seen a couple of instances this year where that's just completely gone out the window. We saw in the opening round, George Hewitt pretty much did the same thing. He got off. Then the following week, Mason Redman did, again, more or less the same thing, but he got a one-match ban. And now we're seeing here with Jesse Hogan, again, it's pretty much the exact same thing as those two incidents that I just brought up then, and he's got off. So there's absolutely no consistency with the tribunal when it comes to off-the-ball striking incidents. Regardless of how little impact is in the strike, because in all three of those incidents, there wasn't really a whole lot of impact. The players weren't injured, but it's still an off-the-ball hit, and it's not something that needs to be in the game at all. I think they should be getting more than just 1-game bans, let alone a fine. But anyway, and then there was, of course, the Toby Green one. He got 1 week for bumping or, going for a marking contest. It looked like he was initially going for the mark, and then he decided midair to turn his shoulder and brace for impact and bumped Jordan Boyd in the head. His one-match ban was upheld, and I think that a suspension in this instance is fair enough. A lot of people are saying that he did not deserve to be suspended. I've seen a lot of people on Instagram saying that the only reason he did get suspended was because his name's Toby Green, the Toby Green tax, blah, blah, blah. Although that makes no sense considering that Peter Wright got 4 weeks for what I think was probably a less blatant suspension, less clear-cut suspension than what this should have been, in my opinion. The only difference was that Peter Wright knocked Harry Cunningham out, and Toby Green didn't. Unfortunately for his case, and for Jordan Boyd, he didn't concuss him, so there was nothing to worry about there, and for that reason, it was only a 1-week ban instead of a 4 or 5-week ban. Now, I think that Toby Green should have got more, because, with the Peter Wright one, you could argue that he was going for the mark, and then the player was coming back with the flight, and he realised that he was never in a position to mark that, and so he braced for contact. I honestly don't know how I feel about that Peter Wright one, but the Toby Green one, he was in the perfect position to mark this one. He didn't misjudge the flight of the ball whatsoever. The ball actually bounced off his shoulder, which just shows that he could have easily marked that. Look, a lot of people are saying that he had every right to brace for contact. Otherwise, his ribs would have been exposed to being, hit by the oncoming player. Although, really, if you're going for the chest mark and your arms are tucked in like that, your ribs aren't that exposed. They're not that vulnerable to an injury anyway. So he would have been bracing for contact if he had have gone for the mark. And like I said, the ball bounced off his shoulder, which means that, if he just wasn't turning his body like this, he could have easily at least attempted to mark the ball. He never did that, so I think a suspension in this case is 100% fair enough. The only problem I have with this decision is that there is still no consistency whatsoever. They're basing it on the outcome and not the action, because if he had have knocked out Jordan Boyd, he would be out for 4 or 5 weeks. We've seen that with Peter Wright. It shouldn't be a 3-week difference whether a player gets knocked out or not in the suspension. That needs to change, and I'll come back to that later. But so they weren't the only tribunal decisions this week, because earlier today, Tom Barrass had his one match ban upheld. He was done for a dangerous tackle. Last week, Charlie Cameron, for pretty much the exact same thing, got off without a suspension. There was much talk about that because Brisbane argued that because Charlie Cameron had, I believe they said he had an exemplary record, he didn't deserve to be suspended, and he got off with what has been coined as the good bloke rule. Basically, if you have a clean record, you haven't been suspended before, then apparently you might be able to get your suspension downgraded or wiped completely. Which, by the way, Charlie Cameron had been fined 5 times before that incident, so I don't know if you can even really say he had an exemplary record. The West Coast Eagles argued this same point, but even though it's the exact same action, Tom Barrass probably has a even better record than Charlie Cameron. He hasn't got off. It makes no sense. There is even less consistency here. I don't believe they made a statement in the AFL that they were going to patch up this this loophole. I mean, if they had have, then the Eagles wouldn't have tried to go down that path. So it makes even less sense with this one. This one just completely baffles me. If Charlie Cameron gets off with that same argument for the same action, arguably worse than what Tom Barrass's was, because I think there was more of a dumping, slinging motion in Charlie Cameron's incident than there was in Tom Barrass's, then Barrass has to get off. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I just can't get my head around it. But yeah, so there have been a lot of confusing tribunal cases and verdicts over the last couple of weeks. In fact, all throughout the year, earlier in the year, Cozzy Pickett jumped off the ground, bumped, looked like he raised an elbow and bumped Jake Saligo. He got 1 week for that. Now, personally, I don't really see how that's that much different to Jimmy Webster, concussing Jai Simpkin in the preseason match. So I don't know why there's 6 extra weeks for Jimmy Webster just because he concussed Jai Simpkin. Editor's note, I looked back at that footage of Pickett's bump in round 4. It's actually not entirely similar to Jimmy Webster. A more comparable instance would be last year in round 1, where Pickett jumped off the ground after Bailey Smith had kicked the ball and
just absolutely launched at his head. That was like pretty much identical to Jimmy Webster. He only got 2 weeks for that because Bailey Smith wasn't concussed, and Jimmy Webster got 7 because Simpkin was concussed. Now, you could argue that that was a different year, different set of rules, but there's no way there's 5 weeks difference in the space of 1 year for those two incidents.
Like I said before, the AFL is giving out suspensions based on the outcome and not the action. That should not be the case. Or at the very least, there should not be 6 weeks difference between Jimmy Webster's hit and Cozzy Pickett's hit. It does not make any sense whatsoever. It's like, you could argue that in the real world, in a real court system, that someone may get a harsher sentence based on their victim's injuries, if they, for example, like an assault. But this isn't the real world. This is AFL. The circumstances are completely different. All this is going to lead to is players thinking that they can get away with incredibly dirty actions. It does not make any sense. And then other players getting suspended for probably not as bad. It really, the AFL Tribunal in the last couple of years and the match review officer, they have completely lost the plot, it seems. Every week it seems like there's another decision, and they just keep on getting more and more baffling. So hopefully they can fix this problem. Laura Kane, the current general manager of football operations in the AFL, she needs to go. She is just completely messed up this entire system. Like, how can you get a worse suspension for tackling somebody than you would for hitting someone off the ball? That's something I hadn't even really covered until this point in the video, but yeah, none of it makes any sense. That's my final point. That's my final takeaway. Nothing makes any sense. Comment down below what you thought about these tribunal cases, what you think about the whole match review system in general. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.